Jermaine O'Neal, a former NBA player, six-time NBA All-Star. He is the executive producer, at least one of the executive producers of the new Netflix documentary Untold: Malice at the Palace, the first film in the Untold series, and the next film, Untold: Deal with the Devil, chronicling the pioneer boxer Christy Martin. That'll air November 17th. Jermaine O'Neal joining us on the program. Jermaine, great to see you again. What did you unearth that you didn't know about the Malice at the Palace?
Well, first of all, Dan, it's great to see you as well. A lot of about this document was information and having a conversation, and that was big for me. It went about 10 years after the brawl happened, and we had to go through an incredible amount of legal, incredible amount of civil lawsuits, and we couldn't talk much about it. And honestly, I didn't really want to talk much about it. To be completely honest. And then this thing just kept being an anniversary, and it's like anniversary over anniversary. And I knew that it was information out there that was never talked about. And it was one of those things where I finally just, took some time out to interview, some directors, some producers, to kind of talk about, could we put together a doc that, one, didn't alienate a league that I care so much about, or, the Pacers or anybody else that I care a lot about, but really just to have the conversation for the first time so people can get a different perspective and see just how the narrative was changed. And I thought, this doc told everything.
When you hear from the fans who were involved in this, did you interview any of those fans?
No. So one of the things I wanted to do on this doc, and I have to say, thank you to Netflix for seeing the vision, understanding the vision. The Way brothers, Floyd Russ, who's the director, who did a phenomenal job on capturing it. My job was to have the conversation, to get people that were there to talk, to come on. And I told them, talk candidly. The fans themselves, never had any contact with them. Hell, to be honest, Dan, when we shot this doc, I never even sold Steven Jackson or Ron Artest. We shot it all in different locations, or Ben Wallace or Reggie Miller. We shot it separately. Guys wanted to speak openly about it, mainly because we want to put this thing to bed so people can stop having anniversaries and talking about it.
Anybody not want to be a part of it?
So everybody wanted to be a part of it. I got to say shout out to Rasheed Wallace and Larry Brown, who actually did not make the final cut because we only had an hour and 8 minutes to put all this information in there. So we're going to lose some sort of information, but everybody wanted to be a part of it. I think everybody understood it. You have to understand too, Dan, is that when you're going through a process like that 17 years ago, and it seems like it's been 2 lifetimes ago, but people are still talking about it. It's a lot of things out there, right? It's no real template to how you deal with, player fan involvement, right? And from a perspective of a business where the NBA, is a real business, a multi-billion-dollar business, you have to react. And they reacted, and to a point, rightfully so. But I just didn't, over a period of time, once things started to calm down, it was opportunities to talk more about some of the detailed stuff that actually happened and actually show, what in the world was going on in that arena that night.
But did you feel like there was something bad going to happen before something bad happened that night?
No, Dan. I mean, obviously we've had, it was a rivalry between us and the Pistons. It was always intense. But then you have to understand, like, you expect to go into tough environments. That's what makes pro sports what it is. It's a great relationship between fans and players. And when you go into opposing arenas and the two teams that are playing are projected to represent that conference, possibly in the NBA Finals, it's no love in the environment. But I never thought at any point that I would be wearing the jersey and all of a sudden, fending for my well-being.
What's that feeling like, though, when you realize there's a fan right in front of you, and he wants a piece of you? Do you even think, can I defend am I allowed to defend myself even though he's on the basketball court with you?
Well, I could tell you this, Dan. I mean, you go through a process of just trying to, go from understanding, you go from, excited about, beating the defending champions. We feeling good about ourselves. And then going to a point where, hey, looking at what's going on. And then you go to a point of survival mode where people are now starting to touch you. People are now starting to spit on you. People are now starting to hit you with things. And all of a sudden it is a court full of people on the very surface that we should have been protected on. And, I've had this, conversation a ton over the last 2 weeks about leadership, right? Leadership is a word that you hear a lot in sports and life. And leadership is typically in the workplace, right? Or maybe even at home, but you don't hear very much, conversation about leadership when it comes down to protecting yourself and others in a situation that is compromising, right? And that's the thing that people have to understand. My position with it is I'm going to have to protect myself and others in a situation where we don't have anybody in the building trying to protect us.
And there was limited security there that night, and that added to this. What was it like in the locker room when everybody got off the floor?
It was intense. It was a lot of yelling and screaming. I remember just walking in the locker room, and it was like a movie set, right? Because you had guys that had torn jerseys, you had guys that were bleeding from things being hit or scratches. You had guys with like popcorn debris and all kind of stuff all over them. And people were just kind of out of it. And it just went from like one thing to another thing because then, once we actually finally got settled in the locker room, the police came in and was trying to take me to jail. And then, and then I had a situation with Ron at the time when he asked, did he think we were going to,
Wait. So what did the police say to you prior to them wanting to take you to jail?
And listen, I was sitting there thinking, how in the world you go through all of that stuff out there and all the legal stuff that was going on out there, and you walk in the locker room, and players' locker room, and you come directly to me saying, "Hey, you coming with us?" Right? It wasn't a ton of conversation, right? It was like, "Hey, Jermaine, you coming with us?" And at that point, I was already mentally out of it, emotionally out of it, and I reacted and said what I said to him, and I guess thankfully, they respected that. They understood where I was coming from.
Were they trying to cuff you?
They never got to that point, but they understood where I was. And I think that was one of the benefits of being 6'11", 260, where, you go into a situation and you see that it's out of control and people are emotional, right? And I was very emotional at that time because I think it's important for people to understand I inherited that. Jack inherited that, right? Jack goes in the stands to help Ron, and then the guy throws the beer in his face.
This Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson, yeah. Right. I'm in a situation where I'm on the floor, but I'm on the floor with other fans. That, by the way, is hitting me, and grabbing me. I was telling the story, in a couple of interviews, like people don't realize, like I had just got somebody off being arm around my neck and everything. Right. And so I'll go from that to having to go to the slide punch. And then from a perspective too, then you have to understand I slipped. But then you have to ask yourself, what did I slip on? People were throwing things, beers and everything from the stands. It was like a movie, right? And so I'm gonna be completely honest. This doc, it took about 10 years to do. And I was fortunate enough to get with a director and Netflix who were able to tell an incredible story. It's for conversation and closure. That is all this doc is for. And for people to understand that all of a sudden, you go from a narrative of thug, criminal, and all this other stuff, which is bananas for me to even think about.
And I want to bring that up because that word thug, anytime this was being described, you guys were thugs. What was it like to hear that? No matter if it was the evening news or Sports Center, you were being called a thug.
It was disappointing. It angered me. It ate away from me for a long time. I mean, for a situation like that, for people to quick to judgment, not even doing their job to wait and say, "Let me get my information," right? And say what this is. It was like, oh, opportunity. here's an opportunity for me to take jabs, at players. And the thing that hurt me the most, not even about myself, my league was under attack, right? My peers that wasn't even in that building was under attack. So I was really disappointed. And I probably, over time, Dan, it was like a virus. Like, it just ate away from me. And because people got to realize we couldn't speak because we had so many pending. I had eight lawsuits against myself, right? And then all the criminal stuff that literally went on for 10 years.
So you were sued by fans?
Sued by fans. The guy that even tried to choke me sued me. Sued by fans that were people that were saying they were emotionally damaged, and it was ridiculous. And won everything. I won everything.
Wow.
I got to clarify this because when I've spoken about the lawsuit against the NBA, and again, it's no jab against the NBA. I'm forever alumni, forever grateful because it's awarded me so many opportunities. But I think it's important when people look at that whole situation, when I go through the appeals process, and the judge is allowed to see every angle and see what actually happened, and say, okay, well, Jermaine, you had the right to do what you did. That's important, right? That is important to me because the character assassination was a real thing, Dan. And honestly, I felt it. It was never really the same. And part of my love, when you're going through a process like that, I love basketball, right? And part of that was damaged. And I knew that it wasn't going to ever be repairable because people didn't understand it and understand the real narrative of the story.
Talking to Jermaine O'Neal, the documentary on Netflix is Untold Malice at the Palace. It's available now. Why did you and Ron Artest have a falling out?
Honestly, as a brother, as a teammate, because it is an incredible brotherhood in those locker rooms, I did not understand. Back then, nobody understood mental health, right? We wasn't educated enough. Mental health is in your face in today's era of sports and life. Back then, if you're talking mental health, you're talking crazy, and nobody wants to be involved in that conversation. And his reaction to stuff, which I thought he did a phenomenal job in the doc on explaining, kind of how he approached it. And honestly, Dan, when Netflix sent me the first cut of the doc, that was literally the first time I ever heard him speak about his process to how he deals with pressure, how he deals with everything. And so it all started to make sense, and I felt emotional. But back then, it was aggressive because I was about trying to win the championship. He would just disappear. He didn't react well to certain things, and I just didn't understand it. So we didn't have a very good relationship then.
But you're good now.
We are good. We are good now. We've had our first sit down lunch together. It was about 2 years ago. We talk often on text. Shout out to Ron, on being able to talk openly about his struggles.
You were, the 1996 draft?
Yep.
So you had Kobe, Iverson, Ray, Marbury, Steve Nash, and you're what, 18 years of age at the time coming in to the Portland Trail?
I was 17.
17?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's a pretty good draft. Did you feel like, I'm 17. Should I be in the NBA?
Back then, Dan, it was incredible pressure because now you can actually make yourself eligible for the draft and then, go through your process and go back. Back then, if you made yourself eligible as a high school player, you basically forfeited your college eligibility. So I was nervous. I have to say, big shout out to Aaron Tellum, who was my agent my entire career, son of a Carroll, who walked me and my mother through the process of understanding what it was. Now, I will tell you, when I made myself eligible, every week after that point, it was somebody else declaring for the draft. And I was like, well, damn, am I going to get drafted? And so I was extremely nervous. I mean, it was some names coming out of there that I was actually fans of, like I watched on television. So it was like, man, this may be a tough one.
Were you compared to Kobe for a little while of, the success of the high school player?
In high school or
no, when you guys got to the NBA, because Kobe didn't play much that first year, but I didn't know if like they were comparing the high school player to the high school player and, who's having more success. Or did you feel that there was competition with you and Kobe?
It was definitely a lot of comparisons, for our success. I came from a smaller market, so not a ton of people knew about me. Kobe was kind of in that direction, for his last 2 years of high school. There's a lot of conversation about him going pro. But the success of Garnett, KG, was really set the standard, right? And so if you didn't meet that level of expectations as a high school player, then all of a sudden it's criticism. And I had to go through my college one-on-one for 4 years with Portland. And that was the hardest 4 years of my life.
Larry Bird, I think, was in the front office with the Pacers when you were there. You got a Larry Bird story?
No, not really. Larry he's really quiet.
He didn't come to practice and take on everybody shooting?
No, he came to practice for sure. He just kind of sit down. He's really direct and about his business, very quiet.
Except for when he's playing.
Yeah, it's people like that though, right? They on the court and it's like they're a different person. And then when they step away from the court,
who was like that? Who surprised you when they got on the court and you're going, damn, man, he's up?
Believe it or not, people may laugh when I say this, but if you look at Rasheed Wallace, right, when you look at the technicals and you look at the screaming and yelling, and as soon as you see him put on his street clothes, super calm, always laughing, people think that he's crazy, right? Because he's leading the league in techs every year and he's screaming and yelling, but as soon as he walk off the court, he's pretty mellow.
Could you smell pot on his breath during a game, though, at any point, Jermaine? Come on.
Nah.
Oh. I remember being at a Pistons game, and Rasheed passed me in the hall, and he was going out to shoot around. And it felt like it was a Bob Marley concert that was following him.
Listen, Dan, I'm gonna take you out for a drink. We'll have that.
I bet we will. When I come to Dallas, then we'll go out. We'll have a beverage. Well, good luck with this. I'm glad that you're able to have some closure with this. You went through a lot. Lost a lot of money. You guys lost an opportunity, I think, to win a championship that year, and a lot to go through. Thank you, Jermaine. It's great to talk to you again.
No, thanks for having me, Dan.
Jermaine O'Neal. He was a 6-time NBA All-Star, picked 17th overall by the Blazers, and he's one of the executive producers of the Netflix documentary Untold Malice at the Palace.